So do not judge Satan by the words he is speaking. But yes, you can judge Milton. It is as if he was telling himself that it's all right. And this is what a poetic genius looks like. He is capable of going beyond his own circumstances and somehow create such an illusion of bravery, such an illusion of admiration that we have this figure of Satan, and we often look at the way Satan speaks and begin to have our imagination of this heroic figure, as if this heroic figure is the hero of Paradise Lost. Hello and welcome back to NibblePop. If you have watched my series on Paradise Lost, you have noticed that I have missed certain lines because we were skipping parts, okay. But I got so many requests to cover these lines, more specifically lines 241 to 283. This video is going to focus on these lines from Paradise Lost Book 1. And I don't know why I skipped that part because these lines are really so important for us to understand how Milton wants to present Satan, and also to understand the conditions under which Satan's mind was working. So this video is going to be ideally sandwiched between the video on rebel angels and the video which covers lines just before this, okay. So that will kind of complete our playlist in some way, and you keep requesting if you find any such missing areas or any questions you want me to talk about referring to this book by Milton. So without wasting any more of your time, let's start the class. In the previous lines, we have seen Satan talking to Beelzebub and how they decide to come up to the plane of hell, how Satan, Beelzebub, they fly out of that burning lake of fire to finally reach the burning surface of hell. Upon reaching the surface of hell, Satan realizes that this surface is also as hot and as unwelcoming as the lake of fire in which he was lying. So this begins the third speech of Satan, and we are looking at line number 238. Him followed his next mate. So first Satan, he came to the land of hell, flying out from that lake of fire, and after him we have his next mate, that is Beelzebub. We have done a couple of lines from this part in the previous video, but this will help us get in the mood of the lines. So I'm just repeating here. Both glorying to have escaped the Stygian flood as gods. So both of them, Beelzebub and Satan, want to believe that they were able to get out of that lake of fire because of their own strength and not because God allowed them to. So they always wish to feel a certain kind of autonomy, a certain kind of power, and they want to feel that this power is independent of God's will or God's design. Alright, so once they reach that plane, let's see how Satan reacts. He begins speaking. Is this the region? This, the soil, the climb? So this is supposed to be the place where I'm going to stay now. So this is the place destined for me. Said then the lost archangel, this the seat that we must change for heaven? This mournful gloom for that celestial light? So mournful gloom means a very sad darkness, which is now their destiny. In place of what? In place of celestial light, in place of heavenly light, they are now, sent to this place full of gloominess, and he is really not very happy about it. But he will not admit his weakness. He will not admit that he is feeling sad, because if he admits it, then it will be showing or exposing his weakness. All right, so he says, be it so. All right, I don't care. So this is a common strategy of the defeated. When you're defeated in a war and you say that I don't really care, it doesn't matter, then you feel as if the person who has defeated you will feel less good. But if you have defeated somebody and that person is saying, oh, I'm in such a bad shape and I really hate my life now, then the person who has defeated that person will feel better. So he doesn't want to give God any satisfaction. So he says, I'm fine with this condition. I'm fine with the situation in which I am. And then he says, be it so, since he who now is sovereign can dispose and bid what shall be right. See, God is such an autocratic ruler that he doesn't care for democracy, he doesn't care for justice. It's up to his wish to mete out any kind of punishment to anybody he wants. So he is being a willful person. He is being a person who doesn't care for any kind of true justice. And ironically, he is using the word right here. So by rule, whatever God does is the right thing because it is God who is doing it. That is what Satan questions. He questions the rightness of the right things, because when God is doing a right thing without making the process a democratic one, then that right thing becomes questionable according to Satan's logic. All right, and very powerful logic at that. Farthest from him is best, whom reason hath equalled, force hath made supreme above his peers. So he always wants to convince Beelzebub that logically God's army and Satan's army were equals. Logically, because they were both immortals, they were both heavenly, and they were both very accomplished. Therefore, logically, they were equals. But force made God higher. How? Because God had this secret weapon by which he defeated the army of rebel angels. So he says, reason hath equalled, force hath made supreme above his equals. Farewell, happy fields. Happy fields, the fields of heaven, which will no more be available to Satan. He is bidding farewell to those times, to those happy memories, where joy forever dwells. There is a note of sadness here. And even though Satan wants to hide his despair, these are the moments when that despair kind of peeps through his armor, and we can see how sad this guy has become. Hail, horrors, hail, infernal world, and thou profoundest hell, thou deepest hell. Now he is addressing horrors. He is addressing the darkness of hell. And he tries to make himself as comfortable as possible there. Receive thy new possessor. So he always wants to own things. In heaven, he wanted to own the reputation of being God's right hand. In hell, he wants to own whatever is possible for him to own. So ownership is very important for him. And that is something which is very sinful according to Christian ethos. Christians believe that if you are a true Christian, if you are a true believer of God, you would feel that whatever you own belongs to God. So the moment Satan says that he is the new possessor of hell, he is marking his territory and he is declaring his defiance against God, his separation from God, that now he has some property which is away from the area where God rules. One who brings a mind not to be changed by place or time. The mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. What matter where, if I be still the same, and what I should be all but less than he whom thunder hath made greater. These lines are so powerful, taken out of context. These lines are beautifully written, just like the lines which we had when he was saying, "What though the field be lost?" Out of context, these are inspiring lines. If you say these lines to a defeated person who is going through a lot of desperation and despair, these lines might enliven the person. If you go and tell a person that, see, it's your mind that matters, imagination that matters. If you imagine that your circumstances are all right, then your circumstances are all right. So it doesn't matter whether you're living in a mansion or in a thatched house. It is your mind that determines whether you are happy or not. Very admirable thoughts. And because of these lines, people often feel that Satan is speaking as a spokesperson of Milton. It's as if Milton is speaking through Satan. But these are not soliloquies. I keep on repeating this. These are not soliloquies. These are very carefully crafted sentences used as a political weapon to keep your followers still in your side. So these are politically motivated words. You cannot judge Satan's character from these words. You can judge Satan's character from his actions. What does he say here? A mind not to be changed by place or time. Fine. But we see him changing his mind like already a lot of times. First he is showing despair. He is bidding farewell to joy. And then he is saying, I'm fine with the situation. Then he is not accepting his punishment. He is refusing to accept it and trying to go beyond it. And then he's again accepting things as if this is a better situation than being in heaven. So we have a confused person. He doesn't know what is else there waiting for him to endure. And he keeps on telling that his mind is not going to change. But isn't that the greatest weakness somebody can have? How do you evolve? How do you develop? How do you survive? By changing, by adapting. So if you do not know how to adapt, how to change, which involves change of your decisions, your mind, your mindset, then you are unfit as a human being, you are unfit as an angel. A changing mind is not the sign of being fickle. A changing mind means owning your mistakes, recognizing them, and trying to get out of them by changing yourself. So the way Satan says, I have a fixed mind, he is presenting fixed mind as a virtue. But fixed mind is basically a great handicap. It stops you from being better than what you are today. And then he says, the mind is its own place. Very Renaissance. These are the lines where we see the Renaissance spirit reflected. That imagination and then mind being the center of thought. The way you think, the world becomes that. It's very romantic, very idealistic. But then he says, the mind can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven. That means these words might apparently mean that this is hell, but since it is dependent on his mind, he can always imagine this to be heaven and this will appear as heaven. So there's no problem if he is living here. But think about it in this way. When he was in heaven earlier, he was still carrying this mind. And therefore, perhaps he was carrying hell inside him when he was in heaven too. What is hell? Hell means a state of suffering. Why did he rebel? Because he was suffering. He was jealous. He was envious. And he felt that God was wrong. He was prioritizing, he was being partial to his son, and although Satan possessed all kinds of greatness, Satan felt cheated by God, and he was feeling as if he was in hell because he was carrying hell inside him. Now, Milton actually gives us this beautiful line. This is from Book 4, line number 259 to 60, and there Satan says, "Which way I fly is hell." When he's going to Eden, to paradise, he is outside hell, but still in his mind, he is carrying hell. So see, hell is not just a physical space. In fact, these lines show that it is not a physical space at all. It is a psychological condition. It is a mental state. It is something which you possess. So, is he possessing hell or is hell possessing him? Okay, let's find out. He wants to establish the fact that it was only because of thunder that God had won the war. Earlier also he said that logically, by reason, we were same in power except for the thunder. Here at least we shall be free. Very heroic word, free. Freedom is the greatest happiness that an intellectual mind can hope for. Satan is luring us to believe that he is a professor of freedom. He is a messiah of freedom. He thinks that he is free in hell. But what did Milton tell us in the very beginning, just after invocation? That this whole thing was designed by God. He wanted Satan to act in a certain way. Why? So that by repeated evil work, Satan creates a situation where God will have the chance to show his goodness to man. Selfish? Yes. But then God also wants some glorification, doesn't he? There's no harm in that. If you have done something good, you want people to praise you, just like we want you to give us likes. It's just like that. There's no harm in that. But Satan thinks that he is free and his actions are not controlled or are not designed for a greater purpose. Okay? And then he says, "The Almighty hath not built here for his envy." Here means this place. God has not built hell as a place which is so wonderful that God will feel bad that Satan is having a wonderful time. So God will not be jealous of us. God cannot be jealous. God is God. Jealousy is something which belongs to the world of the devils. And so Satan, he cannot understand what God might actually think. And he feels that God will not be envious, will not drive us hence. Here we may reign secure. We can rule this place. And in my choice, to reign is worth ambition, though in hell, as if it's a matter of choice for him. He refuses to acknowledge in front of Beelzebub that he does not have a choice here. He is presenting the whole thing as if, under any circumstance, he would choose to be here rather than in heaven. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Antithetical statement. He has taken it for granted that now that he has been sent here, God has actually donated this property to him. It's as if God has delegated lands to his sons and daughters, and hell is granted to Satan, as if God has said that you go there, you rule there. So what is actually going on in Satan's mind? He wants to make sure that his followers see this place not as that bad a place, not as a place of loss, but as a place of gain, as if they have gained something. And what have they gained? They have gained autonomy. They have gained independence. And this insistence of autonomy, insistence on independence, this is so heroic, especially if we look at it from a post-colonial perspective, from the point of view of people from countries which have fought vehemently against their colonizers, people like us Indians who feel that, all right, we were a very poor country, we were devastated, but we were free in 1947. And our ministers must have thought that time better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Although I wouldn't call that colony a heaven at all. But this is how Satan is presenting it, that earlier he was serving, and the fact that God had chosen his second in command as the son, therefore Satan had lost his place to the third position, not even second position in heaven. And therefore this subservient position was unacceptable to Satan, and it's good that they are down here where they can rule. But wherefore let we then, our faithful friends, the associates and co-partners of our loss, lie thus astonished on the oblivious pool? Now he wants to bring everybody out of that lake, to reform his army, to make them feel as if something yet can be done here, to give them a purpose. Purpose is something which makes you survive the worst of situations. If you have a sense of purpose, and if you don't have a sense of purpose, then no matter how rich you are, no matter how heavenly your places are, you won't survive. And call them not to share with us their part in this unhappy mansion, or once more with rallied arms to try what may be yet regained in heaven, or what more lost in hell. Let's try our luck. Maybe we'll lose again, maybe we'll gain something. And that uncertainty is the very essence of that purpose that he will generate in the minds of his followers. So Satan spake is an archaic way of saying spoke. And him Beelzebub thus answered. Beelzebub is always supporting Satan. Sometimes he acts as if he is the voice of reason, but he is not very loud. He is not very righteous. Don't confuse him as a righteous person. Nobody is righteous here. Everybody is evil. But comparatively, Beelzebub is still giving him some pointers to reconsider his ideas. Okay, now let's see what he says. Leader of those armies bright, which but the omnipotent none could have foiled. So you are the leader, he's addressing Satan, of a bright army who could never be defeated except by the omnipotent. Omnipotent means all powerful. So God was the only power which could defeat our army, and you were a leader. If once they hear that voice, so he is asking Satan to call the rebel angels so that they hear the voice of Satan and feel rejuvenated and feel the strength which they now do not possess. If once they hear that voice, their liveliest pledge of hope and fears and dangers, heard so oft in worst extremes and on the perilous edge of battle when it's raged. When the battle was raging, your voice helped them. Your voice guided them. If they hear that voice, then in all assaults, their surest signal. So your voice was like a signal for the army. They will soon resume new courage and revive, though now they lie groveling and prostrate on yon lake of fire. Now they are lying powerless in that lake. As we, erewhile, astounded and amazed, no wonder fallen such a pernicious height. No wonder they have fallen from such great height. They are confused and powerless. Your voice can revive them. So now we understand why Satan's speeches need to be so heroic and so admirable, because he has to boost up an entire army. And Beelzebub knows this. He doesn't want Satan to be truthful. He wants Satan to be powerful. And you don't have to be truthful to be convincing. Liars can be more convincing than people who speak the truth. So do not judge Satan by the words he is speaking, but Yes, you can judge Milton by the words he is writing down in Paradise Lost, or dictating rather, I would say, because he was not writing down himself. And if we are to think about Milton for once and not about Satan, these words, just imagine the circumstances under which he was writing. He wasn't able to see a thing. His political ideas were completely destroyed. His ideals were destroyed. People whom he loved and trusted were either killed or they simply moved on to the other side. He was in hiding. He didn't know if he would see any better day anymore. And under these circumstances, when he was feeling as if he was in hell, maybe these lines mattered to him when he created these. It is as if he was telling himself that it's all right. It's all right because it's all in my mind. And if I can imagine this as the seat of happiness, as the seat of fulfillment, then nothing can stop me from being happy. Milton is capable of writing such inspiring words. And this is so ironical because he was not in a situation where he could actually inspire people to be happy. And this is what a poetic genius looks like. He is capable of going beyond his own circumstances and somehow create such an illusion of bravery, such an illusion of admiration that we have this figure of Satan and we often look at the way Satan speaks and begin to have our imagination of this heroic figure, as if this heroic figure is the hero of Paradise Lost. But is Satan the hero of Paradise Lost? This is one question which has so many interpretations. It's impossible to pin down on anyone. After this part, we have the lines where we'll see all the rebel angels coming up one after the other, and I have dealt specifically with the most important ones in the video which was actually already published, and I am doing this video almost 2 years after my first video on Paradise Lost. Feels like I've jumped into a time machine here, but I think after these lines you will have more or less a very good idea about the continuity of the story here. Thank you all for suggesting these lines so that I could make this video. I try to answer all your comments as much as possible, do videos as per your suggestions, and I'm really sorry if some of the suggestions are not doable at the moment, but please stay connected because being connected with you all is so wonderful for us. So see you all very soon in our next video. Till then, this is Monami Mukherjee signing off. Stay happy, stay subscribed.